Well, welcome in once again to another edition of the best political talk show in the state of Nevada, and that is us, Pick Your Politics. I'm your host, Dennis Silvers, and the season is here. Caucuses are here, voting is going on. You've been watching it on television. Races are heating up, and it's getting real interesting. And, before you know it, the presidential election is going to be here next year. And you got to start, as I say every show, vetting your candidates. You agree with this, you don't agree with this, looking at individual opinions and track records and so on and so forth. So it's going to be a very, very important election, as every election is, by the way. We've got a great show for you today. We have a guest that is returning to the show. We're lucky enough to have him in studio. He's from the Dallas, Texas area. He's in Southern Nevada to do some campaigning. He's going up north to Reno also to do some campaigning, and we expect a very, very good show with Mr. Ryan Binkley, who is a candidate running for the president of these United States of America. Ryan is a well-established businessman, and he is also a pastor. He started a church near his home, multi-denominational, and which I think is it's kind of unique. Pastor, politician, businessman. He is the CEO of the Generational Equity Group, founded in 2006 with his wife, Ellie, who also happens to be in studio as well. Ryan attended the University of Texas in Austin, receiving his BA, and also Southern Methodist, got to get the gum out of my mouth, a university where he earned his MBA. So he's a pretty smart dude, especially when it comes to numbers, because that's his business, and we're going to talk about numbers. We're going to talk about the budget and just how that affects you, everybody in this country, and how that is a lot of times really overlooked by people. So anyway, let me start off. First of all, welcome.
Thank you, Dennis. Great to be with you in person.
I am so happy to meet you in person and have you back again. Ryan, do you ever think we could get back equal justice in this country?
I do think it will get there one day. Right now we are in a moment that's an incredible crisis in our country. Obviously, there's so many ungodly attacks against President Trump, against Republicans in many ways. And, we're in a cultural battle. President Trump, I think, is become an icon. We've done for everybody here in Nevada, we've done 200 town hall visits, by and large, mostly in Iowa.
Right.
So we've been in Iowa, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, Texas, but we did probably 70 or 80% of them really focused on Iowa, early state. And a lot of people are really upset. I think one reason President Trump did so well there because of the attacks against him. And we're in this race because our country's broken. God really began speaking to me about years ago, Dennis, was it's a cultural problem we're having here. And we need a revival and awakening economically, but we need one spiritually. We're at a place right now, I think Abraham Lincoln talked about this divided state that he warned us about so long ago. I think that's where we're at. So a lot of these things that we're seeing about injustice, unequal justice is a result of the hatred, the division, the discord in our nation, which must be repaired. Otherwise, we can't accomplish anything significant.
That's very, very true. Of course, I asked you this, and I guess a lot of people ask you this when they first meet you, and they go, Ryan, why are you still in this race?
Yeah. Well, to get to know why I'm still in it, you have to know why I got in it to begin with.
Right.
So why did I get in to begin with? Well, as you mentioned, I'm a CEO of a business. My wife and I have been married for 25 years. We have 5 kids, 13 to 23 years old. We adopted our 5th child from South Korea. He's 13.
Great.
And my wife's a first-generation immigrant, and the story of her life is amazing. Her family's life is amazing. Her dad was an interpreter for General Trudeau in the Korean conflict.
Really?
and waited 15 years to get here after servicing, our country and Korea, and now we're in a moment where our nation is really bankrupt, and so I actually began having dreams about this, 2015, out of nowhere. I think messages from God about our nation, about how it's broken. I'm an economist. I see things financially. I think something's coming. I've been telling America that something's coming we're not ready for. We are $34 trillion in debt. We are in trouble. We are probably now, if you look at M2 money supply, which is the amount of money in your cash account, my cash account, everybody's cash accounts, plus let's call it CDs up to 100,000,
Right.
really at an all-time low. It's dipped 2% versus 2 years ago, which is about kind of how tenuous it was before the Great Depression. So there is, although the stock market's high, that's not the indicator of how fragile you are. Well, how fragile you are is the banking systems. How well are they loaning, which not very well. How healthy are the small regional banks? Not very healthy. How much cash does the average person have in their bank? Not much. So that's
Not much.
That's the problem. So I got in it for this reason. We're telling America we need an economic revival. We need to get back to a balanced budget. We've only made one principal payment in 30 years in our nation. It's ballooning out of control. It's what's causing inflation. So many people can't afford food, rent, you name it. They're getting kicked out of their apartments. Yeah. Homelessness is, we visited 2 homeless shelters the last 2 days here in Las Vegas area, and it's 12% higher than it was a few years ago. So this is why I got in, to address these issues, to transcend these moments, and I'm still in it for the same reason. God spoke to my heart. I would get out if he said to get out, but I felt like he said, hey, come to Nevada. Regardless of what everybody's saying, speak this message to the people of Nevada and let it fall in their hearts and ears and let them pray. Let them see what they have to say.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on this no label party idea that's been going around?
We have, I got introduced to some people about them maybe 6 months ago or so. And, when you look at the division in our country, that's, I think, what they're trying to address is, can we have a candidate? I think they wanted a Republican as the lead candidate and maybe a Democrat as the vice president, because they see our nation in a similar way, that it's so broken. Is there any way out? Is there any way out? It's kind of almost similar to a lot of people's thoughts about the Convention of States. I don't know if you talked about that here before, but I think the Convention of States is a nuclear bomb in case things don't work out in our country. And I think that we can do so much more. I don't think it's the right time for a no labels party, but that's why I'm running, because I think I'm the right candidate for right now that can transcend party divisions and actually accomplish something. But I will give it hats off to No Labels. They've got $100 million. They want to put something together. They're getting ballot access right now. Right. They may do something different that the independents have never been able to do before. One, they've got money. They get resources. If they get a ballot access, do they have a candidate with a message that people get behind? That's yet to be seen.
That's yet to be seen. Exactly. And if it does come to fruition, it's going to be interesting who all they pick with that. What's the biggest problem in your view right now with the Republican Party? Because I know here in Southern Nevada, Clark County, it's a little bit fractured. There's some infighting. People have different ideas. They have different paths they want to take. But on a national level, and you see this on TV, on the nightly news every night, what do you think's the biggest problem with the Republican Party? We got to get it together.
Well, the Republican Party's divided in itself right now. So there's a little over 50%, 60%, or whatever it is, that seems to want President Trump right now as the candidate. Many of them haven't heard our message yet, so I appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak. We missed the first debate by a few people in a poll in New Hampshire and another few people in one national poll, but we decided to stay in. We've started to get a little bit more national press now. But what's really broken in the party is vision. The divisiveness of the culture of our country has gotten seeped into the Republican Party to where we don't know what to do. We've lost who we are. Therefore, we don't come up with solutions that make sense financially. I mean, we have been a deficit spending party for 30 years, just like the Democrats have, but on different issues. We give tax breaks to big corporate America. We don't want to think this is our party. This is our party.
Right.
The Tax Cut and Jobs Act
Right.
gave big pharma big breaks, gives big tech big breaks. We have done this kind of thing. And so we're divided in the sense of, do we look back and try and give justice for President Trump because we feel like we've been giving him, or he got injustice, I would say, with 91 indictments, or do we try and move ahead with a new vision and how are we going to get our country ahead? And I'm telling America, this is my vision. I think President Trump's going to be okay. I think he's going to be fine. I, of course, do believe many of the indictments are wrong, shouldn't be there at all.
Yeah,
There's no question
I agree.
about that. But that said, how are we going to, how is our children of the future going to continue to grow and have an opportunity to buy a house? Right now, 50% of them are living with their parents under the age of 25.
Yep.
They're struggling. They can't pay rent.
Yep.
Job market's tougher. Are we going to stay in this division just to rehash old wounds? Are we going to go in for another war for the next 4 years just because we're upset? Or do we want to have a vision for our country? And I'm trying to share a vision that really includes all Americans, but one that's Republican-based. How do we balance the budget? Get back to who we are, Reagan-esque. How do we have a strong defense, but to stay out of war? Can we do something seriously and permanent on the border? Or just are we going to do this back and forth thing every year, put the military there, take them off, build a little bit of a wall, let a Democrat tear it down, which just happened? So I've got some ideas for urban America, too, that are different. And I believe we can connect to this growing division of our country, but I've got some thoughts on how we can do that.
You mentioned to me before we went on, and of course, I mentioned Ryan is from the great state of Texas. You're not exactly in Dallas. You're just kind of outside Dallas a
Well,
little
my
bit.
church and business is in Richardson, but I live in Dallas.
Okay, you
So,
live in Dallas.
I mean, I'm 10 minutes from my church and my business. So
Okay.
we're in Dallas County. Richardson, Texas is a suburb of Dallas, but it is
Gotcha.
Dallas County. So it's
Okay.
it's 10 minutes from downtown.
All right, but more importantly, though, Ryan, how far are you from the golf course?
There's several to choose from. And so the one I go to is about 25 minutes away, which is a little long, but it's worth it. It's nice. It's nice.
I like it a lot. You mentioned that you may have the opportunity. Did you ever think that the border issue would become the number one concern of most people in this country? I mean, you're right there. You mentioned that you might have the opportunity to go to Eagle Pass, to look at the border, see what's going on. And what would you do?
Well, right now, did I ever think it would get to this place? No, I didn't. President Biden has opened up the border. Not only has he not closed it, he has opened it up even more. I think we had 300,000 people cross the border in the month of December.
Wow.
300,000. That's 10,000 a day. And that's what we know of. Catching people
Right.
legally
Yeah.
and illegally, 10,000 people a day. So I never thought it would be that place because absolutely you have to make an effort to allow that to happen. I mean, if you just allow people to do their job, which now he is, keeping Greg Abbott, Governor Abbott, they're cutting barbed wire now just to make sure it's harder for them to do their job. And so I never thought we'd get here. But, we have really been contending that this needs to be a bipartisan plan. If we don't secure the border with money, which comes from Congress.
Right.
So Congress has got the power of the purse. Now, if the president wants to act alone, certainly we can act alone. We can enforce the Immigration and Naturalization Act, which means to me it's pretty clear. Unless you're 100% certain somebody coming across the border would qualify for asylum, then they need to remain at the border. But that law is not being enforced today. In fact, I think 4 out of every 10 people that cross over, they're granting asylum to. It's almost at 40%, which is a larger number than President Trump allowed and during his administration. But that said, it's a broken system. You've got divisive nature in it. You've got the Democrats on one end that want to have citizenship, I guess, and let everybody come and vote.
Yeah.
You've got the Republicans that want to have a complete border control and, let's deport everybody. We'll call it that on the extreme sense. And then in the middle of this, nothing is happening. So we have human trafficking at an all-time high. Dennis, as you know, we've got probably, my goodness, 2,000 people dying a week of fentanyl. I want everybody to think about
Unreal.
that. 2,000 a week. That's like 9/11 happening every week. And each party going, well, I don't like your plan and you don't like my plan, so we're not going to get together and we're going to let 2,000 people die every week,
Right.
100,000 people a year. And I'm saying, listen, I think we can
Really
come up
silly.
Let's transcend our party differences. Let's secure the border and let's come up with a plan. And my plan gets rid of sanctuary cities, gets rid of catch and release. It allows us to secure the border, and it also allows worker registration for jobs that we need. A sensible plan, but bottom line, from coast to coast, we have a wall. Technology, towers, people, $30 billion funded plan. And I believe it's a bipartisan plan that will work. And so that's what we have suggested. And some people are close to it. Maria Salazar, Congresswoman from Florida, really pioneered a bipartisan movement towards this. And it's a Republican plan, and we can do it. But right now, the problem, we can talk about this more, it's political now. I mean, now President Biden really doesn't want a border secure. Only thing he really wants is money for Ukraine. So he's given a little bit in his offer, right? But he doesn't really want to secure. I mean, he's getting his hand held high because Republicans are like, I'm not going to give you money. But at the end of the day, Republicans don't want to secure now either. And why? Because President Trump is acting as the de facto Speaker of the House, and he's saying, hey, don't do the deal because that's a political win for Biden. Right. So, listen, it could be, but can we get beyond this and come together with a solution? That's what I would encourage Mike Johnson to do. You be the Speaker. You do this the right way. Stand for what you believe in. But listen, let's get partisan politics out of this, and let's lead. Yeah. Lead or get out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. I don't know if you caught it driving in. I know that more and more Democrats are getting after President Biden, but you got to do something about the border. You got to do something. And he said, I've done all that I can do. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I've done all that I can do.
I think he may be repeating what somebody whispered in his ear. And I don't really know. Goodness. I mean, we've all seen some of the moments that he's had, and that that are really concerning. And so I don't believe that he believes that. I mean, certainly he knows the laws that are on our books, or he should have an advisor that tells him what they are. But, maybe he's done all he can do without really upsetting his far left base, which is already upset that he's even offering and negotiating. So maybe it's political speech for him. But he's not done all he can do. He can certainly secure the border. I think what his offer was that was interesting, though. More Border Patrol agents, more asylum judges to be able to hear these cases in 6 months versus 6 or 7 years. There is some good things in his offer. And I think, when we hear President Trump say, hey, listen, this is a bad deal, this is a horrible deal, it kind of reminds me of somebody on the side of the road asking for $100. And they're upset because you gave them 50. Something is better than nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you can get rid of the number of crossings from 10,000 to 5,000, or even negotiate harder, get it down to 3,000, is that better for the next year? And if you can have, 70,000 less people die of fentanyl this year than as we're scheduled, is that better? And what I hear the president, Trump saying is, listen, that's not better. But I don't think he's thinking through all the things, the ramifications of doing nothing. Doing nothing has a consequence. And so I'm just asking America to, hey, listen, I'm not saying Biden's plan's great. It's not that great, but it's better than nothing. And let's work harder. Let's make it better. And not only that, when the Republicans in House, whether it be me or President Trump or whoever it is, we can do whatever we want to do. We can enforce the current law in the books and say, listen, we're going to enforce the Immigration and Naturalization Act, and I'm shutting the border down because I don't believe everybody here qualifies as asylum. Yeah. You can get it done. So, and there's more to get done in the future, but we have to keep in mind 100,000 people are dying a year. And I think we are, as leaders, responsible for that. And if we can do something to stop it, we should.
Absolutely, we should. Absolutely, we should. But it's just amazing to me with all of the other issues that we have going on in the country. You interview people, and the first thing, the economy sucks, but this border crisis, we've got to do something.
We do.
Man. I mean, it's just on everybody's mind. All right, you get into the White House. What kind of person are you looking for to be a vice president?
The next person that I think could lead.
And don't look at me. Okay,
yes, well, the next person that could lead the country and be as ready to lead the country into the future. I would be looking for the most qualified person to be able to take the helm if I wasn't able to. So who would that be? There's some great candidates out there, some people that I've thought of. I mean, obviously that's a little premature for where we're at right now, but I have thought a little bit about it. But, it needs to be somebody that's ready to take the helm, ready, that shares our same vision and values, and that really believe that would do things culturally the way the Republican Party stands for, but stands for uniting the country. You asked me what our two biggest issues are. To me, it's the debt and our division. And so if it's somebody that doesn't believe in a strong fiscal policy, I think they would bankrupt the nation, Republican or Democrat. And if it's somebody that's another divisive candidate that really doesn't really want to speak above it, you remember Ronald Reagan, he argued with Tip O'Neill, but then they would work together, get something done. I think I would look for people that could transcend the hatred and division and start seeing higher. I would look for somebody that could do that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Everybody knows that something's missing.
Right.
I mean, they're like, Ryan,
Totally.
what's so broken in our nation? I've done all these meetings. People are going, Ryan, golly, why are we like this? Why is it so hateful? Why is it so divided?
Yeah.
And, we become a culture of sound bites. Sound bites that get popular hits on social media that, the news picks up for 30 seconds, blast out there, and we become insult artists. And we think that that's going to really raise the influence level of our lives and then somehow help our country, and it really does neither.
Exactly.
It does neither.
Yeah, exactly right. You're 100% on that. All right, let's talk about, I mentioned at the top of the show, by the way, Ryan Binkley is our special guest on Pick Your Politics. He's a 2024 candidate for President of the United States. And let's talk about the budget. Why do you think more people don't talk about and/or are not concerned about the budget? And it's a big issue. It's a big problem, and it affects you and everybody in this country and your kids beyond. Why do you think people kind of gloss over it? They don't understand it. They don't think it affects them. Oh, well, gosh, we could print more money.
I think it's because it's gotten to be so big right now, they don't think they can do anything about it. If you try and look at the size of this elephant and go, how am I going to eat this thing? And then they just forget it and give up.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got a big challenge ahead of you, when you look closely at the problems we're having financially, there is some ways to fix it. And I've prayed a lot about it and looked at it closely. The government is spending $4.5 trillion a year in healthcare. I'm just looking at the biggest things that we have. The biggest things are healthcare, Social Security,
right.
Defense. Interest payments are going to take over defense. Defense, though, has been flatline growth in the last 20 years as a percentage of how much we spend. Big things, though, social services, Medicare, Medicaid, Obamacare, every subsidy you can imagine in healthcare, those are ballooning up. Healthcare inflation is 4 times bigger than regular inflation. 40% higher, than regular inflation for the last 20 years. Wow. So what's happened is the government has backstopped the entire healthcare monopolistic system from big pharma to insurance. And as much as they want to spend, the federal government's going, it's okay. We'll just print more money.
Right.
Good luck. And so that's the first thing I'm going after is the complex, bloated systems of healthcare that are actually bankrupting our nation. And I could prove it to everybody here given 10 minutes. I could show you how we spend 3 times as much on drugs than Canada. Why? Because we give patent extensions. Why? Because they give lobbyists money to give politicians, and they don't do that in Canada. Canada says, I'm not playing that game. Europe doesn't play that game, but we play that game. So we've allowed this to happen. And so systematically, I would go through it. But I think some of the other candidates aren't talking about it because they don't see a path on how to do it. And they don't recognize that the wealth gap is tremendously, because of this, it's tremendously bigger. The wealth gap is, why are the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer in America? The Democrats have told us for years it's because of the tax rate. So let's tax the rich more.
Right.
Well, the poor aren't paying any taxes at all anyway. And holistically, they're not paying any taxes. So
We'll get the rich people and we'll get the corporations.
So that's
the big corporations.
So that's not the reason why there's a wealth gap. The reason that we're in a wealth gap is because for 30 years we've done deficit spending. For 30 years we print more money. We create an inflationary environment that surpasses wage inflation. And now, if you don't own an inflationary asset like a house or a stock portfolio or a second home or a piece of property that goes up with inflation, you are getting destroyed. So if you're a renter, a college student, I want them all to listen, a young person, and you don't own a home or you can't own a home, you will never catch up with the rest of America, because if you own a home today, likely it's worth twice as much as it was 5 years ago. And you're looking at each other, well, inflation stinks, but I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you kind of kept up with inflation.
Right.
What about the guy that makes 30 grand a year and's a renter and trying to make it happen, or a young college student just got his first job trying to make it happen, and
Right.
they got to get 4 roommates or go live with their parents? They can never catch up in an inflationary environment. And that's what I'm
Correct.
telling America. We better get a hold of this thing through smart spending cuts that really, really matter to the average American. Otherwise, this wealth gap that's getting bigger is going to separate our country even further. And that's what I'm fighting for. The average American. Republicans aren't known for fighting for the average American. We're used to fighting for big corporate America and all that kind of stuff. Listen, I'm not for raising taxes, but we need to cut some of these crazy loopholes that are out there and fight for the average American now.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I know a big issue, especially that is affecting the Republican Party, is abortion. What do you hear about abortion when you're traveling the country? You talk to people. I don't know if you bring it up or,
No, it comes up.
you know.
So, Dennis, this is one thing I realized. One, I'm pro-life.
Yeah.
But I do realize, and I do think it was the right thing for the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade. When you look at the Constitution does not address, abortion. And so since it's not in the Constitution, it should fall to the states, and it's the right thing to do. That said, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, we all have to acknowledge nobody's heart was overturned along with it. If you were pro-choice, you're still pro-choice. If you're pro-life, you're still pro-life.
Yeah.
So now this is in the hand of the states. They're trying to figure this out. I really feel this way. There's not going to be a national consensus on a national ban at any number of weeks anytime soon.
No.
So what should I do as president in the meantime? This is what I think. I should start to lead the narrative that we care about life in our country.
Yeah.
Let's start with a woman in crisis. The Republican Party's never been known to really truly be the party that cares about a woman in crisis. Well, we should be. We should care. And what does that mean? That means we need to encourage churches and charities and organizations to say, hey, listen, 30% of abortions may be happening because of a financial crisis. How can we help more? How
Right.
can we contribute
Right.
more? How can we educate better? Let's do a better job of that. Let's teach young men, hey, listen, there's a consequence for sex outside of marriage. One of them is a possibility of a child, and you need to be ready to support it, or you
Right.
don't need to participate in the action
That's
itself.
exactly right.
And so we need to teach responsibility. At the same time, I think we need to start an adoption movement. We can do some things in foster care system to revamp it to where we truly show that we care about life for our children that are already born.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do a better job of that. So if a young woman is in a moment of crisis, she would say, you know what? I know this. In my country, they care about adoption. They care about children.
Right.
My child's going to have a loving, incredible home to go to. I think the right thing to do is to have the child. That's the kind of culture I want to lead to. And I think we can do much better.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you've got to believe in that. Here, just like my hat that Ryan gave me. Believe, absolutely.
It's going to take that. It cost, we adopted our 5th child, when was it? 11 years ago almost now. And it was $31,000 11 years ago.
Ooh.
So can you imagine what it costs? It should be more accessible, more affordable.
Wow.
You're talking about a young family in the late 20s and 30s. Maybe they can't have a child. How are they going to come up with $30,000?
I know.
So we need to make sure we are creating awareness. We're giving. If you know of an agency or a nonprofit nearby that helps, these are things we can all give back to. I'm calling it Own Your City. This is part of it, whether it be community services.
Yeah.
Like, I'm coming up with a Republican alternative for socialism as well. Like, how do we give back to the most hurting?
Yeah.
Why would the poor want to vote Republican? And I'm sharing a message that's truly broadening our party because, the Republican Party only won 46% of the vote in the last election.
Yeah.
How are we supposed to win only winning 46% of the vote?
You can't.
So we need to broaden the tent. And I've got some thoughts on doing that, but this is a part of it, caring more for people that are hurting.
Yeah, absolutely. Running for any office, whether it be local, state, national, or whatever, costs money. And when you run for president, costs a lot of money. How could people help out if they want to donate to your campaign?
Well, thank you.
Give them a website.
Absolutely. Well, Binkley2024.com. BINKLEY2024.com, place to give right there. You know, we've been a grassroots candidate, but we have over 82,000 donors. I've contributed a lot personally to this campaign. But at the end of the day, this is gaining some movement now by a grassroots effort. It has not been like us spending, $100 million in national TV ads. Some of my competitors out there have spent well over $100 million so far. But we're just getting this message out. So if you like the message, if you're for, hey, I want to see a spiritual unity back in our nation, if you want to see an economic revival, if you want to see common sense back to budgeting, but yet the Republican Party leading into urban America through vocational trade movements and volunteer movements, let's show the poor we care. Let's have a sensible plan for the border. Let's secure it, but it's going to, it's going to be more than just one person talking about it.
True.
Otherwise, when that person's out of office, whoever the leader is the Democratic Party is just going to tear a wall down. If you want to see that, give to our campaign. That's what our message is about. That's what I'm asking people in Nevada to caucus for us. Just me and President Trump are on the ballot on the 8th, on February 8th.
That's right.
So, you've got two choices there. If you want to see a next generation leader, if you want to see our country go to a higher level, I'm asking you to consider, would you pray about voting for us? Would you pray about leaning into that? If you're a Nikki Haley supporter, a Ron DeSantis supporter, or anybody else other than Trump supporter, well, we're the only one that can get a delegate. Me and President Trump are the only ones that can get delegates. If you vote in the primary, you can, but your candidate's not going to get a delegate there.
And Ryan was the only candidate that will share the results of his latest cognitive test, unlike President Biden or anybody else. So you don't have to worry about that with this guy. Anyway, well done.
Thank
really
you.
Well done.
Well, thank you for having me.
I wish we had another hour, but unfortunately we don't. You're going to Reno for a couple of days.
We are.
Talk to the people in northern Nevada.
Okay. We will.
So that's going to be good.
We're going to be there. We're going to be there next couple of days, and then we're actually going back to Reno, going to Dallas, and maybe Eagle Pass. I'm confirming that on Friday and Saturday. And then we're going to go back to Reno for a day or two, then back here to Las Vegas on Wednesday and Thursday, getting ready for caucus night. We've got teams of people showing up, helping out if anybody would like to participate.
I was going to say,
Binkley 2024. We need help.
How else can they help?
Man, you could volunteer.
Sure, you want donations, but if they want yard signs,
Yes.
if they want to knock on doors or whatever, how else can they help?
Email us at info@binkley2024.com. Say, hey, I'll help. Join us on our telephone town halls. We have up to 10,000 people on these here in Nevada. We're doing one on tomorrow night. We're going to do a couple more here before caucus night. And sharing with our message with people. You can invite friends to that. You can ask questions. You can email us questions. I'll answer every single question right there on the phone. And it's a way, kind of a grassroots way for us to connect to a broad group of Republicans that say, you know what, hey, listen, I want everybody to know too, I don't hate President Trump. I've supported him. I think he's done a lot of great things. My message is really about how do we unite our country? How do we go to a different place? If you want to see something different, I'd say this: you got to vote for someone different.
That's exactly right. That's well said. And like I say, every show, remember, vet all of the candidates, see what you like, see what you don't like, but the most important thing, you got to get out and vote if you want to make a change. You just can't sit around and talk about it. So got a little bit more exposure on Ryan Binkley. So it is what it is. You like the message, here's your guy. And he'll be around again and more. Yeah. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition. We will be back same time, same place. Well, maybe a different time. We were a little late today because Ryan was coming from an event. And but check us out every week on all your social media platforms, and we will keep bringing candidates to you that have a message, and we'll see what they have to say. So anyway, I don't want to spill the beans, but he's got a very important appointment right after this show. We're going to play golf. So anyway, we'll see you all back next week. So long, everybody.